Hi. You made a really good video about problem players and how to deal with them. Now, since this is a topic that touches on every role player out there, whether they're just sitting around the table or at the head of it as a game master, I thought I would go through some of your points and maybe give out some of my own tips, some stuff that I've found out over the years through my own mistakes and through the mistakes made by my players, mainly social things. First, you brought up this thing of players and their characters talking over someone else. Now, putting up your hand or using an initiative counter to delegate who gets to go first, it's a good idea, especially for a new gaming group, because they haven't developed a group chemistry yet. They don't know, even if they're good friends and have been for years, they don't know each other as players yet. And when they start, telling stories and rolling the dice, a whole new side of them might come out. However, there's one thing here that I would kind of disagree on, and that's the mechanical penalty on talking over someone else. What I would consider instead is a story penalty, and this is for two reasons really. First, it does not might not affect them as much, because in most games like D&D and all the different versions, their bonuses might go so high that a simple -2 doesn't count for much anymore. And even on beginner characters, in most systems they're already some kind of specialists, so even if they get penalized for their actions out of character or in character, it's not that big of a deal. Now, the player might pick up the hint that, okay, I did something wrong, but I'm going to assume that there are plenty of problem players out there who will just barrel on like nothing happened. The second is that this mechanical penalty could stir up some animosity towards the game master, even if the penalty is completely warranted, and even if the other players agree that, yeah, you did kind of just ramble on over someone else over there. But yeah, it's not a solid penalty, I guess what I'm getting at. And here I think you should just, for any game master really, with a new group, they should announce clearly that just because someone shouts the loudest doesn't mean that they get their way. It doesn't mean that they get to act out of turn. And this also comes into like metagaming, where, let's say, as a big party, Joe is playing with his character, he's in a tavern somewhere, and Jane is playing her character and she's at the blacksmith's, and Jane hears a piece of information from the blacksmith that could have a huge impact on whatever store they're having, and suddenly Joe starts talking to the game master over Jane, by the way, starts asking, well, does the blacksmith know this? Has he seen that? Well, you're not there. Let her handle it. It should be like made pretty obvious that if your character is not there, just relax, listen. Possibly if something comes up that the other player is having trouble remembering, like, yeah, what was it, why were we going there, and what was that guy's name, then interject with some helpful information, but don't act like you have to be a part of every single encounter, whether it's combat or social. And that's on the player side. Now, on the game master side, if people are shouting and screaming over each other in a manner that's not conducive to the game, you as the game master should try to get their attention. Like, call out their name, not their character name, but their real name, and ask for, well, if they're going round and round, like debating something that's not going to lead anywhere, ask them for an action. Like, what are they doing right now? Or if they're thinking about, like, if they're strategizing or something, ask for explanations. Why would you do this? How helpful is that? And so on. So that at least the conversation can organically move on. Now, if that doesn't work, if the ruckus continues despite your effort, sit there silently. Don't look annoyed, don't look angry, don't go through your notes. Sit there until one of the players notices, oh right, we're not getting anything done right now. They take control at that point of the group. Not you. You're not. You asked for actions and explanations earlier, didn't work. But now that one of them is like interjecting and going, okay guys, let's get real, let's focus. It has a special kind of weight to it when a player does it. Because in the story, they're on the same team. There's an inherent appreciation for the other guy's opinion. Even among players who might be like problem players, unless they're like openly antagonistic, in which case, what are they doing around your table anyway? But yeah, if a player takes control at that point and gets it moving, it actually, I've found, it prevents it from happening again. And if it does happen again, it might not be the same player. The next time around, it might be even the quiet guy in the corner that says, hey, meanwhile, while they're shouting over there like a bunch of monkeys, I'm doing this. And he's talking to the game master, and you as the game master will respond and move along. And later they might find out that, oh damn, they started gaming again, and we're still going on about this, like sharing the loot or whatever, something that's not even you know, that current of a problem, something minor. But yeah, speaking of the passive player, look around. If you see someone looking annoyed or bored around the table, and try to get them into the situation. Some people, like you said, have overpowering voices and personalities, but this is a neat idea. I think everyone should try this if they have this problem where one person is like the loudest in every possible way, really. Talk to the loud guy or girl outside of the game and maybe get them involved in engaging the passive player, the quiet player, and let them involve this other person and take the back seat, so that they're not just driving the events all the time, like what the party is doing. Or because again, if it's just the game master directing attention to the quiet person or the passive person, I mean, you might find out that they clamp up even further. So again, if another player is doing it, the effects could be fantastic, and I've seen them happen. Like one guy I know, he's like he's pretty quiet even when not gaming, but sometimes he could just sit there for hours, and this was when I was a teenager still, but he could sit there for, I don't know, 2 hours maybe, and not say a word more than just, you know, can I get some water, and where were we going again, and this kind of stuff. Just minor questions in between, but he never like leapt in and took action. But once I got one of the other guys outside of the game, I told him, like, okay, I have this idea that since both of your characters are working for the same corporation, how about we make you like partners, like an investigative team? And he was like, yeah, actually that might work. And I mean, they were friends outside of the game as well, but once we did that, suddenly those two started firing on all cylinders. I mean, really, he was still pretty quiet, but he was no longer passive by any means. Something to consider. Now, as for the out of character problem, people talking out of character and making it difficult for a new game master to differentiate when they're actually talking to the NPCs and so on. The pen method you mentioned could work great, but it could also create a problem with player character telepathy. What I mean by this, and this, trust me, I know this happens without the pen as well, but it's just that situation where the players are talking about their characters and planning stuff in earshot of an enemy who can probably understand their language. Like just in my last Pathfinder session, two of the guys in the party, they had come across a black dragon who was not openly hostile, but demanding like a very precious trade from them. He wanted to leave this place where he was basically trapped in, and two of the players really started plotting out, like, okay, we're gonna take this dragon down. And the others were like, okay, we can discuss this, let's like think it through, because this was an adult black dragon and they were not on their home turf, and they were pretty run down in enemy territory, it was an enormously bad idea to challenge this powerful thing on its own turf, basically. But two of the guys said, I mean, I could hear them talking, that yeah, we're gonna take it down, and one of the other players noted there that, hey, you guys realize that you're like planning to kill this guy out loud, and the dragon has exceptionally good senses. I mean, one of their traits in Pathfinder is dragon senses. I mean, they can see in the dark, and he has a perception of like plus 26, I think, or 28, something crazy. And he was like, yeah, and I said as the dragon that, okay, unless you can get those two under control, on a leash, we're not gonna have a deal. And they wanted to make the deal, so I mean, later on they attacked him anyway and basically got a total party kill. But anyway, stuff like that, out of character discussion about tactics and strategy should be extremely limited, even if the PCs are talking about things like either hideout or some kind of, I don't know, a base camp. Yeah, make sure that they understand that someone could be listening in. And as for choosing a character, yeah, this could help a great deal with the out of character problem, because if it feels like a second skin, then you're not going to have problems talking through the character, truly acting like you yourself would never act, for good or for ill. But yeah, if it's something too alien, like in a game called Eclipse Phase, science fiction game, you can play like all kinds of, like, there are these things in that game called uplifts, which are basically animals that have been forcibly evolved to human intelligence. So you could play a monkey with the intelligence of a human, or an octopus with the intelligence of a human. They don't think like humans, but intellectually they are equivalent. Now imagine as a new gamer trying to play something like that. It wouldn't work unless you picked, like you said, some quirky aspect to it that you could hang on to, like this is one of the, I don't know, the driving forces of the character, or some minor thing that makes them special, more than just being this weird thing. But out of character problems can be alleviated in a couple of ways. First, let everyone know well before the game even starts what kind of theme will there be, what kind of mood, and what the core of the story will be. This avoids those ill-fitting characters from popping up, like the guy who makes like a Jack Sparrow replica, and you're running a story in the cold north centered around Viking mythology. What? Why would he? But by letting everyone know what you're going for, lets them know what they should be going for. And if they still create the outsider character, like someone like in that Viking example, they create a southern man, some kind of happenstance just brought him up north, and it's a strange culture and everything. Make sure that they know that they will not be the sole focus of the story. Yeah, they might be like, they're like some kind of anthropologist, like, oh, these bizarre people with their strange ways, how interesting. But the story will remain the story. He might have his own private story that might come up every now and then, but just because he makes the one guy that's special in his eyes, that's not going to be the focus. And here's another thing, going back to the rewards and penalties. Like the penalties that you mentioned, in-character rewards should also be story focused. What I mean by this, and clarify that these rewards occur because of the player character's actions. These could be like NPCs that like them, give them discounts, information, a place to stay. Like knowing a friendly innkeeper who feels like that kindly grandfather is worth infinitely more than any diplomacy modifier, and that NPC can act as a sound, what's it called, a sounding board, something to like reflect on them, how the community feels about them. And they can act as a story hook. I mean, it's always fun when the players have invested like time and their feelings in, when they go through a rough spot, or they are endangered somehow. I mean, don't overdo it, of course. Every person they get acquainted with shouldn't get kidnapped by kobolds, but you know. But yeah, in-game rewards should be like clearly defined as more meaningful than just anything you can get with a single roll of a dice. Something that resonates really with the story and the characters. And on your final point, those people that take over the game in some ways, whether they're just loud or, worst case scenario, obnoxious. They seemed fine, but as soon as they get around the game table, their personality changes into something no one enjoys. Like the guy who loves board gaming because he's competitive, and suddenly he's in a storytelling game where there is no clear victor or a clear loser, and it's basically not even team oriented. It's just that you work, all of you together, even the game master. There's no opponent that's sitting around the table. Yeah, those people can be kind of like, they have to be handled very delicately, because it's just that possibly their idea of what the game is different from reality, and confront them, but don't be confrontational. Like don't say that, oh God, what were you thinking, or whatever. Be upfront and honest, but don't bring this problem up around the other players. Make sure it's just between you two, so that it feels more relaxed. It's not like they're on trial. And make them, understand that, yeah, this is supposed to be just relaxed fun for everyone involved, you included as the game master. Yeah, but if they don't respond to this very direct advice, then you have to let them go. There is no other way around it. I mean, one person cannot play over everyone else and ruin everyone else's fun. I mean, how do you handle it if you're having a house party and one guy shows up already drunk, urinates on the floor and starts picking up a fight? I mean, you throw him out fast. Hopefully none of your players will start randomly urinating. If they do, you have a whole different kind of problem that I'm not sure I can help you with. Now, like you said, point some of the action and events at the quiet players without forcing them into action, like simply head the ball their way and see what they do with it. For example, let's say they're playing a fantasy game and the quiet player is playing a priest or a cleric, whatever. The priest or the cleric in the village they're going to will only discuss matters with another priest or a cleric, another person of faith. So even if the loud guy is like, I'm gonna, hey father, what do you know about this monster? And what? They're like, my child, take it easy, sit down, say your prayers. Now, if the brother would be so kind as to join me in the chantry, I have some information for you. And they go behind locked doors. Works fine. And again, make sure that everyone knows that the amount of metagaming that there can happen around the table will be extremely limited. Like, I usually allow stuff like when some other players like saying, oh, you know what, you should ask them about this. I allow that because if it makes sense that the person who is conversing over there, if it makes sense that they would ask that, then it's okay. I mean, you don't have to be overly strict about it, because things still have to be able to move along, progress. And if you're just like going round by round and no one is allowed to interject anything, yeah, that's going to present some new types of problems. Yeah, then there are, of course, the kinds of problem players that you didn't bring up, but I think I will in another video, because this one is getting way too long, I know. But I'll make that video a bit later, and hopefully this response helps people out, and yeah, hopefully your gaming table will be wonderful and harmonious, but we all know they might not always be, so keep your cool and follow some simple advice. Learn to communicate on a level that's suitable to you, even outside the gaming table and your role as the game master. And if you are a problem player, you've recognized some of these characteristics, personality traits in yourself. Know that it's okay, but try to improve. It can be very harrowing for the first couple of sessions when you just like tone down your involvement, but please at least make the effort. For everyone's sake, even yourself. Yeah. And who knows, maybe when you tone down your involvement, when the other players start acting, something even more interesting might come up. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'm going to make tea. Bye.